right, welcome to today's webinar on SAGE, the SAGE systems for the school year 2016-2017. My name is Julie Quinn. I'm the coordinator here at the Utah State Board of Education over test administration and reporting. Jared Wright is with me. Jared is the test administration specialist, although he thinks he's working with elementary math these days, and I won't let him leave yet.
I'm trying.
So we were talking about how this may be Jared's last SAGE training presentation today and tomorrow as we launch this school year, as he is moving to the development team to work with elementary math. I haven't forgiven him yet.
No.
It might happen someday. So we are here to go over what has changed from the 2016 administration of SAGE in the spring till now. So there's been some things that have changed and some things that haven't changed at all. Tomorrow, which is September 1st, we will be doing the all-day full walkthrough of the SAGE systems intended for those who have never experienced it before or who want a full refresher on everything the system does. So if you're brand new, we're going to be going fast today and just talking about changes. So you may lose some of that context today if you are not familiar with how the SAGE systems have worked in the past. We also had the in-person training with Tide after the assessment directors meeting a couple weeks ago. So we're going to hit lightly on some of those things, but please let us know what questions you have. So as we talked about, as some of you are still logging in, there's a chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. You can turn your camera on if you want so everyone can see what you're doing while we're presenting. It's fun that way. We can also take some questions live if the chat box isn't working efficiently for us. This is our first large WebEx with lots of users on it. Moving to the WebEx format we think will be more stable, but there's a learning curve for all of us on using WebEx for these sessions. So welcome. The bulk of today's presentation is going to be led by Jared. We have some other folks who have joined us to pitch in with some changes, but please let us know how we can help you and what questions you have as we launch the beginning of this school year. So Jared, I don't even know what's first, so I will let you.
We'll get started. So as we go through, we will go through all of the slides, but some we'll spend some more time on since it's an update. And if you have questions, let us know, as Julie said. And I'm trying to think. We'll just get going and go through it that way.
I have the controls.
Yeah, Julie has the controls. Do you want me to use that and then?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Next slide. Yeah. All right. So these are some of our goals. Again, this PowerPoint will be used overall, and so we'll just again go through just the updates. So all of this still the same. As Julie mentioned, I'm trying to move to elementary math, but still working with test administration as well. The websites that you can use, nothing's changed here. And testing ethics, we will be updating, hopefully today or tomorrow, we'll be updating the PowerPoint presentation that goes along with the testing ethics policy at the website listed on the screen. So this is actually was shared at the assessment directors meeting last week or the week before. Julie's actually going to take this because she's worked through all of these variations. So we still have summative, and we have full reporting interim, and we have class period interim. But there's a few additional things, assessments that will be beneficial depending on what your purpose is. So I'll let Julie take it over.
Okay. I don't know what questions you all have had since you have been thinking about these new benchmark assessments since we talked about them in the assessment directors meeting on the, when was that, the 18th-ish, yeah. So a little while ago. These are the slides that we had there. I will mention on our website, we're currently agency-wide in a website conversion because the State Board of Education's website needs to be merged with our old State Office of Education website, because we are now all branded as the State Board of Education. So because of that, we've had some delays in things getting posted to our website. And we apologize for that, and we're trying to work through those bottlenecks as we can. So I don't believe this PowerPoint's been posted yet. We might attach that to an assessment director's memo if that's helpful for you all to have before we can get it actually posted to the website. So again, the summative we've had stays the same. Full reporting and class period interims stay the same as they were last year. What's new for this year are these benchmark modules. We didn't put them all in red.
No, these need to be.
But they are new for this school year. So have you all had any questions? Or do you have any questions, or have you had any concerns or thoughts about the benchmark modules that we can answer in this setting? We'll give you a couple minutes to chat into the chat box. Or I think, Emily, can they unmute themselves? I don't know if they can. Sometimes we forget to mute ourselves afterwards. I don't see any questions coming in. Maybe we're all good. We've heard lots of excitement about these benchmark modules. Again, they're at the reporting category level, administered through TDS and managed in TIDE. So that best practice document that we committed to providing at the assessment director's training afterwards. On the testing windows, have we?
Yep, we have that in the process.
It's in the process.
Yep.
So we're working with AIR on that to try and give you some examples of how to use those testing windows in TIDE to manage these benchmarks so that they're available for your schools and teachers when you want them to be. Okay, question, when they'll be available? Oh yeah, that's a good point. September 26th. So benchmark modules launch, heaven help us, on September 26th. That is the expected launch date. Another question, have we spoken to A about the use of benchmark versus interim? Terry, that's going to be coming through the A channels as those meetings start kicking off the next week or so. Maybe an inquiry directly to Darren would be helpful, but I know that they're aware and considering the implications of moving the data from a benchmark to an interim. Sorry, that was my phone. Whether or not to continue using the interim data or using the benchmark. I know there's been some discussion on pros and cons of either. So that's a good A question. How many questions do they have? Well, it depends. So what we've done is we've taken the interim item bank and we've constructed multiple forms of the benchmarks wherever possible. So for writing, you get one prompt. For some of the categories that have more items, you'll have more. So we think that there's somewhere between 7 to 9 to 10 questions per benchmark. But we're working on that document too. In fact, I'm going to write that down because those were the two things we owed you all, was some information on that comparison and then the best practices on the testing windows. So those are good questions. Will the benchmark be visible to all teachers? So the benchmarks are going to be available with the same eligibility rules as the summative and the interim. So kids have to be enrolled in the course to see the benchmarks. What we are looking at is how to separate the eligibility from the summative and the benchmarks for those, like so for 11th grade, if you're not giving SAGE to 11th grade, but you want the benchmarks available for 11th grade, we have not finalized that mechanism to trigger that. So we need. Here, text her back and tell her I'm on our webinar. That was our boss calling. Best practices, and we need the item counts And we need the test eligibility. Okay, I'm looking at the questions. What are the pros and cons of using the benchmark modules versus the interim? That's a great question, Jason. So the interim, either one of them, are designed to say how the kid would do on the summative if they took it that day. So the interim is the full sequence or the full scope of the SAGE summative assessment. The benchmarks are going to be by reporting category. So if you wanted to know how the kids would have performed on the summative that day, you'd give the interim. If I want to know how my kids are learning algebraic operations or whatever that reporting category is, then I would teach that and then give the benchmark assessment there. The other difference is in the reports. So on my next slide here, what we talked about with the benchmark reporting system that's new over here on the right-hand side of the screen, being able to see the actual items with the kids' responses will be available in the benchmarks, not in the interim. The interim, you get the same reports you've had for the interims in ORS, with some changes to the reports that we've made for this year. But the benchmark reporting system is where the teacher is going to be able to see after the test has been given, the items, how kids responded to them, and use that to drive conversations in the classroom. So the interims, by definition, are now no longer secure. I mean, we know that they've been used in non-secure ways over the last year or so. They've been available.
Right.
But they're not public either. So the benchmarks are not to be posted to blogs or printed in newsletters or those kind of things. The benchmarks are to be used in classrooms to drive conversations. So they're not secure, but they're not public either. So I hope that helps a little bit with the benchmarks. Jason, let me know if more follow-up would be helpful. Are the benchmarks leveled, easy, medium, hard, or a mix of DOK? So the passage sets for language arts are benchmarked by that reading level, the easy, medium, hard. DOK, because DOK is for all assessments, a range in the interim, it's that same interim bank that comes into the benchmark. So there'll be a mix of DOKs in those benchmarks as well. And I'm going to see if we can give you some more visibility when we get that little one-pager that talks about the different kinds of tools. So they're available September 26th. This is where they're hot off the presses, so you know everything we know at this moment about them. And as we get our chance to see how they've actually turned into a thing in the next, hopefully, week or so with AIR, allowing us to do some user acceptance testing on them, hopefully, before they roll out, then we'll be able to give you some more information on them. So those are the benchmarks. And then we have, here's the reporting. So Jason, here's a very quick look of what, seeing the item, how many kids responded to each item, and then you can click on those. So seeing the writing responses, I know has been a highly desired feature, with the emphasis on writing that we have. So yeah, we'll be able to give the writing prompt and it'll get scored, and then you'll be able to see the student responses with those. One writing prompt per grade level probably, because that's all we have. Then we have the testlets, which we have talked about also briefly. Those are again from the formative system, but using the same benchmark reporting system. So they're very low level initial screenings of what kids know in the basic areas of the content. We do not claim that these testlets have any sort of rigor to them. They are from the formative bank. All the items are available to teachers in the formative bank. It's just we've packaged them for the benchmark reporting system into these testlets. So it'll give you a different view into the reporting of those items that were in the formative system. And then the practice tests. So again, these are also rolling out September 26th. And these will be available to the public. That'll give about half-ish of a blueprint for both content and then item types as well. Sorry, science, there's still no science practice tests. These will roll out for ELA and math only. So those were the new things that we've talked about over the last week or so. Any other questions on these new assessments before Jared gets into the system? Okay, here's some questions. Hang on, let me expand my box. Okay, we're hoping that since the benchmark and test lists are completely an LA decision, there's no opt-out option. Has there been a decision on this? Okay, so here's the issue on the opt-outs. The legislation that provides parents the ability to exclude their children from testing says that it's, I can't remember what the first part is, that talks about it, state required testing, but there's verbiage in there that says, or on a state platform. That's problematic. So it's not just for summative assessments, it's any assessment offered on a statewide platform. So that means that these benchmarks and test lists are going to be wrapped right into that. We're hoping that the board may consider revisions to the opt-out form at their September meeting. I actually don't know where that conversation is at. I know we have drafted revisions to the opt-out forms to be updated to the website, but we have to have board approval on that. So we're waiting for board action to get those new opt-out forms into your hands.
So a couple questions.
Okay, benchmarks adaptive. There, let's see, it says on my little slide.
Yeah.
Hang on. Benchmarks are fixed form. Right there in the left box upper. So they're fixed form assessments. There's going to be more than one. So there'll be like a third grade reading and literature form A, third grade reading and literature form B, and then you'll get to choose those. So it's not just new tests. There's like going to be 100 new tests.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these forms. Since the test lists come from formative, will any of those be editable so that you can select a different question from formative? No, Terry, the test lists are pre-packaged, but if you want to use them from the formative system, you can go into the formative system. You just don't have the benchmark reporting system that way. So they're pre-packaged, set, fixed form into the benchmark reporting system. Okay, those are good questions. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will turn the camera back to Jared.
Okay.
So there you are, friend. If we bring it closer, does that look better? Look, there you are.
I think it looks worse as you get closer. Okay. Let's move on then. So testing schedules. I've just included this, just some questions to think about. Most of you, especially if you've been involved with SAGE before, have gone through this experience anyway. But just some questions to think about. We can
Am I clicking?
move on. Yeah.
I'm trying to click. Okay, there we
There
go.
we go. The TAMS, it has 2 links for where these can be where they can be found. You have the windows there for the mid-year summative and interim, and then you also have the overall testing schedule link at the bottom. You've seen this before. We just talk about the untimed and
we are working on the writing times from 2016. Those have just come in to us.
Yeah.
That will be crunching and getting out to you all in the relative near future. That shows the summary. We have seen a drop in the secondary ELA writing times. So that's interesting. As we match that up against the drop in ELA scores, that will be an interesting data point to look at.
Yeah, definitely. Again, test sessions, going through. Times have not changed as far as recommendations.
So we're going to go fast through these PowerPoint slides because the full dive is tomorrow. So don't get seasick as we click through.
And don't worry, we only have about 200 more slides to go.
That's not kidding.
Yeah, so the times are the same. This is somewhat new. I know a couple years ago we asked for these, and then there was a bit of a change, and so they're back. So there are some bullet points as far as what we would like included in your testing plans. The dates, obviously. If you have juniors, grade 11 students, which SAGE assessments are they going to take or not going to take. You'll notice a couple bullet points down. You have a place for professional development and training, monitoring, which includes testing ethics. So we would like kind of an overview or what your plan is as far as that, which is included in the board rule mentioned above. And then also some information about data. You'll notice there's a blank at the very last bullet. We do have a testing plan template, which, as Julie mentioned, some of the website stuff that we want posted is taking a bit of time, but that will be posted on the assessment director's webpage on the assessment website there. And you can see there September 15th when we'd like this information. As far as using a testing plan template, you don't need to. We just want those things included in your plan. I've been receiving plans already, so just make sure those things are included. If you have questions, you can contact Julie or myself, and we'd be glad to help you.
Okay, we'll stop if you type in questions that we've moved on from, so feel free to type in any questions on any of this as we go.
Yeah. Testing for electronic high school is still the same. And then there's an overview. So we can, this, again, many of you have probably seen this, just going through the development test items. Oh, go back one.
Aww.
There is one new thing. So for the listening passages, a few of the passages will also include text that the student reads and listens, different text that they read versus what they're listening to, and comparing the two and answering some questions. So just an update on some of the items that listening passages might have. Writing, just wanted to call out, there we go, alert papers, just cruising through. Oh, so another update, Desmos calculators. So the calculator that is in the test will change. It will change its look, and it will also come from Desmos. And it's available on the test. We'll actually go through it later in this presentation more specifically. But that can be downloaded. It can be used. There's an app for it on iOS devices, I'm sure Android. So students can use this calculator throughout the year. Teachers can use it. So hopefully it's a little more friendly when they come to the test and use this calculator as well. And again,
so both elementary and secondary.
Well, yeah, sixth grade and then 7 and on up. I'll keep going through science. So there is a few updates here, just that the board's approved new 6 to 8, grade 6 through 8 standards, and also approved development, which is helpful. And so down below, Scott Ross Kelly, who's the science assessment specialist, has put some information. He would like some help from science teachers out there to be able to write and create new items. So if you can direct information to your science specialists and 6th through 8th grade teachers, that would be great, because he could use a lot of help on that. Then we're just going through the tools and resources. Most are still the same. Not a lot of change, which is nice. There are a few here. Increased font size. So in the past, students could go up to ×3 and magnify or zoom into the test. Now they can zoom up to 20 times. But in order to do so, some settings need to be set in Tide, and we'll get to that a little bit later as well. So they increase font size, and this is a bit of a description on how that looks. So they can zoom in a little bit closer. We've heard comments for visually impaired students, they need to be able to zoom in closer with greater magnification. So this is to help address that. Also, oh,
Wow.
look, it's an animation. I didn't realize it was animation, so that's why the circle was there. So you have a bigger mouse pointer, again, for students that might need some, have some visual impairments that need magnification.
That's a big arrow.
It is big, yeah. And you can change it to colors. Again, this is not something a student can go in and change and play with. This is something that has to be set prior in Tide by a test administrator.
I just want to sit here and watch it go all over the screen. It's kind of fun.
Okay, still the same. Again, just mentioning Desmos calculators. Okay, Tracy's going to present some accommodations. A lot of this will...
Why don't you just walk through it and then I'll...
Okay.
Just walk through it, and if there's questions.
I will go through it, and she's here for questions. So visual all of this, yeah, Braille, print on request, and sign language.
It's all the same.
All the same?
Easy peasy.
Pretty much.
Okay. Are there any questions with what we've gone through so far as the resources and the accommodations? If there are, just enter them in. We'll keep moving through, but looking for questions. So I'm going to switch seats with David, who will take you through Utrex and data.
Hi everyone, let's talk about Utrex. Not a lot new here, so actually we'll probably skip through quite a bit. So these slides I actually made with kind of more of the new ADs in mind, but just a good reminder, know who is entering data in your SIS. And we do have an updated list of the test triggering core codes. I'm not sure if Emily's had the chance to quite put it up there yet, but it should be there by end of day today, I would think.
We don't know for sure.
Yeah. And there were some slight modifications. I think there were a couple of new core codes that were added. And on that document, I've highlighted the ones where it's a new code and crossed out any case where a code is no longer valid. So again, contact me if you have any questions, but that new list will be available on our website, like I said, hopefully by end of day today.
Okay, Emily's typing so we can confirm that, but yeah.
Okay. And there is the link. Just again, a reminder that the core codes are organized by priority. Some generate more than one test. It's just a reminder of what fatal errors, scheduled outages are still going to be October, December, and July. We are discussing internally some ways we can get around having Utrex down for about 2 to 3 weeks, 3 months of the year. We will hopefully have some updates as we grow closer to October on that, whether
Well, that
our
sounds
ideas
much
will
more
work.
optimistic than what I've heard, so.
Well, yes.
Yeah, it's a challenge. We don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it continues to be an issue for us.
Yes. So for the time being, at least, we won't be able to get them through Utrex. We're looking at ways maybe to work around it, though. I want to go over this because I get a lot of questions about this. So people ask, they say, hey, I've got a stale extract. What does that mean exactly? And just to reiterate, what it means is we check each night how many enrollments you have in what you sent us in Utrex. That number decreases by 10% or more, then we mark that extract as stale, which means we stop sending new data. We send the previous day's data until someone resets it. And that someone is generally whoever is your Utrex specialist has access to the reset button. And if you're not aware that this is happening, months could go by where we are not sending any new data if you're not looking and checking and paying attention. So just a quick way to explain how this works. So if on Monday you sent us 1,500 enrollment records, we'd send 1,500. Next day it decreases by, let's say, about 9%. 9% less than 10, so we're going to send that number, and the number of students who can test is going to decrease by over 100. Next day, it decreases even more for whatever reason. Maybe there's a lot of fatal errors or something. This time, it's by more than 10%. That triggers the stale extract, and you'll notice that at that point, we don't send that new lower number. We send what we got on Tuesday. Thursday comes. The number goes up. It's back up to 1,500, but until someone hits that reset button, we're still going to send that stale extract until someone pushes that button. And again, like I said, the person who pushes it is generally your UTREX specialist. Once the button is pressed, then we get that 1,500 the next day, and then we'll send, if we click, the 1,500 will start sending, again, whatever you have that's new. But you want to be careful with that, because obviously if on Friday you sent us 0 rows, then we would just remove everyone from Sage. And if you were hoping to test on Friday, none of those students would be eligible anymore. So the whole reason we do this again is to protect you so that students can test in cases where there's more than a 10% decrease in enrollment counts.
Question. Can we use UTREX to upload K2 classes into Tide Performative?
I don't believe that we currently do that.
No, I don't think so either. Because are there K2 resources in formative?
There are. Oh.
So are we, you know what, I'm going to write that down and we're going to find out about that.
I mean, we're just filtering them out. So there's no reason we couldn't. We just don't. So if we discuss internally and decide that it's worth doing, then sure, we can do it.
Okay, good call, Terry. We'll look into that and see what we're doing.
Okay, so that's stale extracts.
That means someone actually uses Sage Formative.
Yay! I don't need to go over this too much other than, and I think Jared will talk more about changes in Tide, so that's unimportant. Otherwise, within Data Gateway, last year we were trying to get that special codes tool up and running, and then, we said it would be up by like March. I don't think we quite hit that deadline, and even then it was only once a month, and it was only a short period where it was every night. My understanding is that it is going to be nightly once we can get the data exchange working correctly. Many of you have noticed that a lot of data isn't making it into Tide right now, unfortunately. Some of that is on our end, and our IT department is working very hard to try and get UTREX running faster. It's been running too slow, which has been making things time out. If any of you have been trying to see student data on Data Gateway, for instance, that's another question I'm getting asked a lot right now.
Well, or students in Utah Compose or UTIPS or Sage, that's all being eaten by this problem in the UTREX processing. Right. So it's IT's top priority other than accountability at the moment. So so we're working on it, we're aware of it. But once it's up and running, again, the special codes tool should update on a nightly basis as opposed to a monthly and then eventually a nightly. Okay, and then the last thing is the data eventually will end up in the SURF, which is available. It is, again, something you get in Move It, but one of the big changes is that now you can request a new SURF file very easily. There's a tool under My Tools in Data Gateway that just says Request SURF, I believe. And you can go to that and enter the exact parameters. I believe you can choose like which year's data you want, some other things like that, and then it will create the file and put it in Move It where you can find it. So those are the handful of changes this year. Okie dokie.
And then optional assessments, that's the same as last year.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding data exchanges?
Any update on the delivery of draft accountability reports? No, Hal, I have not. I was not planning on talking about last year's stuff during this webinar, so I did not get a quick update on that. Maybe if Jared starts talking, I'll walk next door and see if Aaron's in his office and I can find out. Do you know, David, where we're at?
I don't.
I thought they went out. I thought you guys had it in the Data Gateway.
What's happening on your end, Hal?
Do you have visibility into them in the Data Gateway? I know I saw school grading there, working with a district yesterday. I think we've been getting questions on Safari, so I think you might have them, Hal. But,
And if you don't, then yeah.
let us know. We'll chase that down.
Okay, I'll pass it
Okie
back to
dokie.
Jared then.
Thanks, David.
Get all situated.
We're
All
in
right.
the funny overlap period where we're finishing last year and starting this year, where we've got hands in lots of cookie jars at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, let's get started with.
I have the clicker.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, here.
Okay, the power of the clicker. Sage Help Desk, same. Sage Portal, again, this is the same. Just wanted to call out, this is not your account in the Sage system, but it signs you up for emails for announcements and other resources. So we've mentioned here, you see in red, the benchmark system, which Julie went through. One of the systems that will be coming towards the end of the month. We're not going to take a training test. All right, Secure Browser version 9 is new, and we'd like it installed before students can take the assessments. We realize
That might be tomorrow.
that might be tomorrow, and also some of your LEAs have depending on the size or your IT shop that you have, this might be easily done or this might be pretty difficult. So we'd also like, gotta go back.
Just scroll up.
So we'd also like you, if there's some issues with this, let us know. But it is preferred that you go to version 9, and there's some documentation there to help with the installation.
Jared, do we have a cutoff date on when the old version won't work anymore?
So we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
So we've thought about January. That's how it's been done in the past. But AIR has recommended that we
Move that day.
move it to October. So we've kind of been in discussion with AIR, realizing that we don't want to force you to move and have a lot of work there, but also realizing the importance of security and getting this browser updated. So if you have any feedback, let us know. But we're working with AIR to have a final cutoff. We'll probably go through that at an AD meeting or in a memo for that. Wrong button. All right, some of the reasons why for the new features. So better crash reports, loading splash page. So with the loading splash page, so there sometimes if there's a difficulty bringing up the internet's having trouble for some reason, it'll just bring up a blank page and you have no idea what's going on. So this page will help give you an idea of why this is happening, whether it's the internet connection problem. It also lets you know what your secure browser version is, which might be an issue as well. There's also some enhancements if you use Linux, and also some updates with iOS as far as security. Some of the features we've talked about in the past that we've had to work with, version 9 will help with those security issues. Actually, and one more thing that I don't have here I'd like to mention. So in Chrome, if you use training tests, in the past you've had to use a secure browser. Now, if you use the Google Chrome browser, you don't have to use a secure browser to get text-to-speech. So students could go on to the training test and just use the Google Chrome and not have to log in and would still be able to listen to text-to-speech.
Awesome. We'll add that slide before tomorrow.
Yeah, get that in there.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, Jared, I can't remember if we have to use the bench or access the benchmarks and test lists through the secure browser or not. Yes, because they use TDS. So they are through the secure browser.
Yeah, so, yeah,
So once,
TDS is through that.
which means it's going to impact the TA interface and Tide. And remember that list of 100 tests? That's going to be all over the place. So as soon as we get our hands on it to write up some instructions for how to navigate that, we will get it in your hands.
Yes.
One more question. Should we not worry if our students are not showing up in Tide yet? Is it still being resolved? Yes, you should worry, but the source of the worry needs to be determined. So the first step is if you're sending data to Utrex. Then the next step is if Utrex is sending data to the systems, which we know last night they did not. So yes, if you are not seeing students in Tide the way you want them to be, you can check your Utrex class lists in the data gateway. You can send us an email and we can help direct you to what the source of holdup
Right.
is.
Yeah, we'll try and track it down with you.
I'm just kind of the disembodied voice over here, huh? I like
Yeah.
that a little bit.
The voice from this
Yeah,
this
but
guy.
look, I can see Tracy in the corner over there. As a reminder that special ed is always in our minds.
We're always in the corner.
Okay.
Here, I'll
Some,
help you out, Tracy.
oh,
Look, but then they can see me. Okay, go ahead.
okay, we'll go through now what the student is seeing. So when a student logs in, we're going to go through the test tools and the functionality that they're seeing in the test delivery system. So a new feature, I guess you could call it, is that you'll have the expand button for not only a reading passage, but also for science simulations and some other items that are a bit bigger so that you can expand it pretty much full screen and the students will be able to look at those. The menu is still going to remain the same. You still have the context menus. Let's see, sorry, we had a question. Does this version of the secure browser self-update? So that's a kind of a funny question.
The funny story there, huh?
Yeah, not really that funny. We were working with AIR and we're told that it would self-update, but in further discussions and when we actually saw the browser, they are not able to do the self-updates. So this browser will not self-update. That'll have to be done however you've pushed out those browsers to the student computers in the past.
And we're pretty
sorry.
disappointed about that, yeah.
Sorry about that. It's always great when you say one thing and come to find out that that's not how it is.
We lied.
Yeah, bit frustrating. All of this has been here before. Again, this is what a student is seeing as they're walking through. One thing to notice is that when a test administrator sets up a testing session and includes certain assessments, those are the only assessments a student can see.
Is that new?
I don't think it is, but it's pretty new. So
I don't know. We'll find out.
I think it was there in the spring, but again, approval, checking all of these. I like this, just gives a nice overview as far as where things are located. Dictionary again. So here's, as I said, a bit more specifics on the Desmos calculator. So here you have a standard version. You also at the bottom have a link where you can go to this and see more or download it, however you want to do that. So on the left is what has currently or what has been in place as far as a calculator for students to use. On the right is what they will have moving forward.
So Jared, are we for sure this is rolling out in September?
No, this actually starts the 1st of October.
Okay, so when the summative tests go live in the middle of September,
Yeah,
they won't
for
quite
whatever
have them
reason.
on until October.
Yeah.
But so then in October, we want to get this in the hands of math teachers so they can start using it,
So,
right?
yeah, so something to think about is this is available, and from what I understand, a lot of math teachers use this, especially if you have various devices. They already use this, and so this would be something that math teachers could be using right now. Then come October, the students will be seeing this on the tests or using this depending on how they work it. But it's definitely something that you could start using and promoting with the math teachers. So here's the standard version. You have the scientific, and again a link specifically for the scientific, and you can compare the two. And then you have the graphing calculator. Pretty. Yeah. And one thing with these that I think is nice is you can resize the graphing calculator to be able to increase or decrease depending on what the students need to be seeing on the test, so they can have a bit more real estate to help them. Let's see. So Terry, it was available in the spring.
That's that test selection spring question. So
okay, it was.
Good call.
Nice. Okay, item sets. This is, as it has been, expandable items. This I mentioned when we were talking about resources for all students. So they can click on these arrows and they can expand it to be able to see more of the passage as they read. It also includes science items that have the testing or the keep doing that. The what do I want to say? The simulation items.
So what does it do? What does it expand?
It expands the whole passage and kind of covers up everything.
So does it cover up the item then?
Yes.
And
There are the questions. Yeah.
The question, and then they'd have to reduce it to see the question.
Right. Yep. Again, I talked about this, increase font size, so I'll just move it. Nice new graphic again. Item badges, so this is new. Up.
Sounds like they went to scout camp.
Yeah, item badge. If you get so many, you earn some kind of Eagle Award, Sage, I don't know. No, you become a Sage, maybe that's it. I need to highlight this, but up by the number here is a little icon, and that icon will give some information as far as what's going on. You can see here whether it's marked for review, whether the student has opened the notepad and taken some notes on that item, whether that item needs to be printed or embossed or has been already. So it just gives you a bit more information on that item.
So what's the actual badge?
It's this little
The
icon.
little flaggy thing?
Yeah, it's the icon by the number.
Okay.
And depending on how many badges, I think it can have a few along here. Enhanced contrast, so the little menu selection that's sometimes difficult to see, they've darkened it up to allow more visibility. You know, I almost say not even to low vision students. I think just anyone, it's helpful to see it better. Let's see, the info bar. So something to kind of help us in monitoring security is they've added these little squares, little tracking things that if as it shows here, if a picture was taken and it's posted online, they work their magic with these and can track down which student was the one that logged into this. So just another way to try and keep these assessments secure. This was there before. The video playback for ASL videos. Now you're able to move it back and forth and not just have to start at the beginning or going to the end. Again, text-to-speech settings, highlighting will persist. Just moving through. If you have questions, let us know. So all of these things are still the same. So that's the TDS system. Ready to move on to Tide. Any questions on the test delivery?
So Jared, all those things that you just showed us that the kids will see, they'll be in the practice tests and on the training tests, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So you'll be able to get into the training tests, and students will be able to see those tools and the way the tests function beforehand.
There's a question on the ethics. Rob, it looks like we have a link that's not pointing the right place. Emily, can you note Rob's comment there? I know that we have updated the ethics PowerPoint, but it hasn't been posted yet. And I'm not sure what the other issue is there. So Emily, do you have that as an action item? We'll make sure that that gets addressed, Rob. Thanks, Emily.
Okay. All right. As far as Tide, we mentioned this. We went through, after AD meeting, we went through and talked about Tide and the various new look. Pretty much, it has a lot of the same things, just a different look. As a few things have changed.
Hang on, Jared. Go back.
Oh.
Terry, that's a good question. So the interim will not have a scale score anymore, so their score page won't have any longer. So the interims will still have a scale score. Go back one more. Right there. Interims still give a proficiency level and a scale score. They just are not giving scale scores at the reporting category level for the class period. And then the interim, you just get that graphic now. So this page stays the same for kids. It'll just be an ORS. The ISR that's printed will look different. So I hope that helps clarify that, Terry. That's a good point. We still are giving proficiency levels and scale scores overall. It's just the reporting category levels that are changed.
Right.
Good questions.
Okay. So let us know as we go through Tide. We will move somewhat quickly through it. If you've had questions, you've had a chance to go in and play with some of the functionality, let us know what you found out. So it's been redesigned, and here's the look. You'll notice as on the left is where you prepare for testing, on the right is administering the test. So the right is where the biggest changes happen. This used to be located in, well, actually, monitoring test progress used to be located in the online reporting system, and it has now moved here. Test status management has been in Tide and continues to be so. All right, so there you have, when you're in Tide, you have the home button. You can always go back to this page. Okay, a few things that are new. There's some drop down that allows you to switch to other systems. Now, oh, I thought that was
there last year, right?
I highlighted the wrong thing. All right, that was there. I meant to make red the one that I actually did, manage account. So this was brought up as well, that if you log in to Tide, you have the option to be able to change your role. So that if you're an LEA administrator and you want to talk to your teachers about Tide, or you want to talk to test administrators at a school level, you could change your role and go to that level so you're seeing what they're seeing and be able to go through Tide at that role level, which is new, and I think is helpful. From my point of view, it's very helpful to be able to see what others are seeing and not just seeing what the state has. Continue to move through this. Most of the setup's the same. The passwords were reset, so make sure those of you who are giving tests, that the TAs can get in there and they've reset their passwords. Again, logging in, this is all the same. Navigating, you have users, which was there before, just looks different. And again, this is all the same. This we should highlight in yellow and red and have blinking lights. Please make sure you're deleting old accounts from people that have moved from your LEA or school, because it's really tricky when they try and get in from a different school or LEA. Adding users, you'll notice Cactus ID is critical. It's not a required, but it's essential for teachers if you're creating their account. Uploading users, all of this information is the same, it's just going to look different. So again, you're going to be able to see and export users or students. Either way, this function's the same. Viewing student records. Here we wanted to point out dual enrollment. Again, this has been there before. I guess something I should mention on this slide, though, is you'll see right here there's test names. So the LEA 43-700 is responsible for these tests, and you can see interims and summative. The one at the top, 42-706, you'll notice there's a number. If that number is there, that means that that school is that course is not a SAGE testable course, so they're being sent there. They have this number, but that school wouldn't have to worry about anything. That's not a SAGE test we're giving.
So that's just there for the formative system.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the reason that particular one is in. But that's how it shows up if there's a course that's being sent, but it's not SAGE testable. It doesn't have a SAGE assessment to go with it. These have been there before. Also these settings, permissive mode and streamlined interface, and a bit more information about each one.
Do you have slides on the ethics training coming up?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to hold these ethics questions, and we're going to talk about them when Jared gets through Tide.
Oh, okay.
And we'll go back and visit those.
Yeah.
Keep asking them. I'm just not going to address them for a minute.
Well, and they would be helpful to have.
Yeah.
When we put.
Yeah, for tomorrow.
As we're going through that, yeah. So the interim, this was there before. Again, it's just a look. So the accommodations are there. It's just a different way to look at it and select. So uploading and rosters are the same. It's going to look a little different here when you select user defined, system defined. Pre-ID, they're working on taking that off. We don't work with the pre-ID labels. And hopefully you know the difference between user defined and system defined. There's also where you can print rosters or test tickets, or if you want to print a page with what settings or tools the student has. And this has been there before. Again, it's just a different look and functionality. And then special code assignments. David, do you want to? David will speak about these, so I'll give it back.
There's an EL question there, David. The EL button wasn't always matching with our SIS. Can that be changed in Tide to match what our SIS says, or is that through UTREX?
That's through UTREX. The EL status is set based on two fields you send in UTREX. One of them is their English, their limited, what is it called? Limited English status, which needs to be either an FO or a Y, or actually just O or Y, I would think. Well, it needs to be, that one needs to be set, and I'll need to remember if an F is in there or not. And then the other field is their first enroll in US field. And if it's a case where there was a gap, say they were here for kindergarten and first grade, they went back to their home country, came back, and now they're here for 7th grade, but they still don't speak English, then you will have to set a special code in the data gateway, which is the only way you can get it to do it. You wouldn't be able to get that through Utrex or to appear that way in Tide.
Okay.
Yes, okay. So,
oh,
great. Next slide then. So the special code, they've modified the way it looks in Tide a little bit, but it's basically the same idea. I believe we are only showing tests where the student has an eligibility for that test. I know at this time last year, it was showing every single test that a student could possibly take. So you could put a special code for if the kid was, let's say, a 3rd grader, you could give them a special code for why they didn't take biology. Now, though, it is just ones that the kid is actually enrolled in. That's all that will appear in Tide. Our list of special codes is exactly the same as last year. We haven't made any changes. And the cleanup process will be the same. It will be handled through the data gateway. And as I mentioned before, that tool will be functioning once we get everything figured out, will be functioning on a nightly basis. And again, I want to reiterate the idea that we said last spring, which is a special code should be set in Tide if you can. So if the student is currently enrolled in that course and is eligible in that course, please set the code in Tide. It's only when you're essentially doing cleanup that you should set codes in the data gateway. So when the kid is no longer in Tide because maybe the semester ended, so they're no longer in that course, or it's the end of the year, or they transferred out of the course. That's when we want you to set the code in data gateway. So basically the mantra is if you can set it in Tide, set it in Tide. If you can't, then set it in data gateway. I believe, unless there's questions, that is all I have for the special codes.
Okay. So same old, right? For all right.
And I'm going to head down to the data meeting.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You'll find out our question for Rob on where we're at with CERT.
Oh, yeah, fine.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Okay, this is also the same test status management. And you can see the different status that you might mark. So, and then it goes through each one, invalidate a test, reopen.
We got better last year at cleaning those out, but there were still like, 900 different test events that we had to start reminding LEA admins to go clear out. So watch this, those of you, if you've got other people doing, whoops, sorry, Jared, just threw my pen at you. Those of you who have other staff managing these test status advance events or yourselves, keep an eye on it, clear them out.
Yeah, and so most of you, at least when you have this, you assign the test status event and you have your selection there, or you can search a student specifically on the right and find out so that you can assign those. And here you go. You can create it, leave a reason why. You can also view if you want to look at, you can choose the request type and then what the status is and dig down deeper. This is probably the biggest area where we need your assistance. So when, here, let's go back. So when you assign, invalidate a test or you want to reset a test, when those two are assigned, then it goes through one more level of processing. So it asks for your approval. And so this is where you approve that invalidation or you approve the reset. Just to add that final check that, yeah, this is really something that you want to do. So you'll see up at the top where it says test status management, there's a red circle with a 3 or whatever number. That's just going to tell you how many test status events you have waiting to be approved. You can upload if there's multiple students that need it. And again, this is what I was talking about. You need to review those and make sure they're approved or denied. And then it goes through some of the status. And then we have the voice pack, which is the same as well. So something new would be the test management center, which was in ORS, or the online reporting system. And you'll be able to set all of this, or find all of this information in Tide. So it functions pretty much the same way. It's just located in a different system. So you can find your plan and manage testing as you're setting up, getting ready to test. You can find who's taken tests, who hasn't, who's started, who's completed, all that kind of thing. And you can look up that information. So again, this is similar as the past. It just is in Tide. You have session reports that you can print. The test status code report is a good one that allows you to be able to see a lot of good information in one report. Oftentimes it's pretty big, so the suggestion is to print this report at the end of the day so that it's ready in the morning when you come back to kind of see what's been going on.
So Jared, all these reports that are in Tide now, the benchmark reports will be in there too, right? Like the benchmark, not the reporting system, but the
keeping track of
monitoring
things, yeah.
For the benchmarks. Those will all now appear as tests, right?
They should, yeah.
Yeah. So we think they will. We just haven't seen the system yet.
Yeah. Again, that's what we hope.
Yeah. We're pretty sure. We can confirm that with AIR, but that's the theory.
Yeah. So this is where you're going to monitor the system, and online reporting system is where you're going to see. Okay. So if we wanted to get to some of those ethics policy questions.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. How about... Well, how far are we? How much more do we have?
We have this, and we have the online reporting system.
Okay, so okay, good. I'm gonna hop out of this for a second. So let's look at the ethics policy. So the ethics policy is a tricky one because it's actually approved by the board. So we propose changes to it, but until the board reviews those changes or adds their own changes, we don't have an updated ethics policy for the school year. So I know that the ethics policy is currently supposed to be on the board's agenda for next week. But what we have right now is posted,
The bottom.
what you all know and love. So the policy, we have not in our office made any recommendations for changes of the content. It needs the new logo, it needs Superintendent Dixon's name on it, but it's going to the board and they reserve the right to make whatever changes they want to it. So we are awaiting confirmation from the board meeting next week to see if there's any content. What does need to be updated is in the presentation. I don't know if we missed this or if we just posted the wrong version, but when you scroll down to the bottom, where is it? Did it scroll? Oh, I scrolled past it. The one slide that talks about using data. Good gracious. I am just no good with this version on our website. That's silly, huh? Okay, there's the UPAC stuff. Hang on. Scroll, scroll. You know which slide I'm talking about, right? The one that talks about using the data. Teachers should work in groups to use the data. That's the slide, that one right there. This is the slide that we have to change, this right here, because it needs to say that the SAGE data cannot be used in student grades or in grade promotion according to substitute 2 of that bill from last spring.
Right.
So that's the one slide that has to be changed. I actually had an assessment director send me a version of their PowerPoint, and it was really creatively handled. It said, true or false? Can educators do this? The answer is false because of Senate Bill, I'm drawing a blank, 201, whatever it was, substitute 2 of that Senate Bill from 2016's legislative session. You guys know what I'm talking about. So that's the slide we have to change. That's the only problem with it right now, so be aware of that. You've already done the ethics training. Do I need to repeat? Updates need to be out there before training days. Yeah, so Justin, I get that. The problem is we are at the board's schedule. So I'm sure they're aware that school started the middle of August, but this isn't high on their radar, hence why it's going to them in September. So we just have to work through these processes. So if there are any changes from the September board meeting, we will let you know as soon as possible if there needs to be updates provided to your teachers. So back to the ethics training will be available Friday. So the correction to this PowerPoint slide will be posted as soon as we work through the bottleneck on our website. So that's in the queue. Ethics training, if you've already done, or on ethics training, if we have done already, can you just train on changes or updates? Is there a quick? Yeah, so Justin, that's what we'll do. So if we'll give you a, hey, the board changed these 5 things, you need to update your teachers and your policy materials. If there are changes that come, which there might not be. So hopefully this is just the one little error in the slide that'll need to be corrected. Those are great questions. It's, you know, it's an important requirement, and here we are. So yeah. Other questions on the ethics training? I saw a district put a bunch of our frequently asked questions in their actual training PowerPoint for their teachers. I thought that was cute. That was a good idea. There was a request for us to like create a video where like we talk through the ethics PowerPoint. We haven't had the bandwidth to do that yet, but are not unwilling to do that. So if that would be useful, you can let us know. Okay, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Does the law, oh, Sherry sent this privately. Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, does the law also exclude the use of benchmark testlet scores on student grades? I don't believe so, Sherry, because they're not required state assessments. I believe the scope of that law is limited to the required statewide summative assessments. So, you know, I know folks have used the interim in some placement decisions. Maybe? Okay, good. Sounds like you think the same thing. That's my interpretation. I am not an attorney. So if we're concerned about that, we are in a legal world these days. Maybe I'll just get a check on that as well. Let me write that down. Benchmarks and interims used in grades. Good questions. Okay. Steve, the question on the data gateway, the proficiency movement category, I actually didn't know that was out there. I have no idea what that is. Does anybody out there on the webinar know what that is? The proficiency movement category on the data gateway? I'm at a downside where I don't have students in a school that work under me. I don't get all the access to the data gateway that I would like to have. That's a good question too, Steve. I'm assuming Erin didn't answer your email since you asked it again, but we will look into that. My list is getting long. That's why we have you guys, is to make sure we're doing what needs to be done. Okay, good. Other questions? Ethics? Oh, okay. Brooke, Jordan. It's showing you what happened to your students between 15 and 16. What happened to your 4s from 15? Did they maintain a 4 or move to another proficiency level? Oh, okay. I remember talking about that with Erin. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Well, there you are. So I'm looking, we actually have a reporting specialist position that's also open. I'm hoping that that person is going to be able to provide much higher levels of support to the data gateway. Mm-hmm. This person's going to be my data gateway, go hound Aaron about stuff person, and then also ORS and working with some other projects as well. But hopefully we can get that position filled, and then I've got someone to be able to chase down all these questions. Maybe provide more training. That stuff's coming too. All right. Should I stop talking and give you back the PowerPoint? How about I do that?
Whatever you want to do.
Here you go, sir. There you are. There's the mouse.
Here we go. All right, so we have two more. We'll go through the TA interface. Most of this is the same as it has been in the past. You'll notice here, I think Julie mentioned this earlier, the benchmark module. So you'll see this when you're administering tests. You'll see this is one of the selections that you can choose. So this is going to take probably some extra training, just helping teachers or whoever's administering the test know what they should be selecting and what they should stay away from. Let's see, going through it just talks about how to expand or collapse those. Here's a new one. So this is primarily for makeup sessions, or if you have multiple tests going on in the same test session. So if you have, well, here you've got interim class period grade 6 math. If you had interim class period grade 5 math, it's going to be its own segment section down below.
So that sounds like someone's mowing my office or something.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that.
Little sound effect in the background. So it's just to help organize it as teachers are administering makeup sessions. Here's another new approve all. So to kind of help from teachers just saying, yeah, I approve all the students, to having kind of forcing them to make sure they're checking who's doing what. Then they have to approve all for this test and approve all for this test. And looks like we need a new
red arrows there.
Yeah.
Something's.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were doing that. So now instead of clicking once, we click several times.
Yes.
Great.
More clicking.
More clicking.
More clicking, hopefully to help TAs know what they're doing.
Not let the wrong kids do.
Yeah. So this is when you see student list of who's in the session, they're taking a test. There's this orange circle with the eye. It will provide more information or to help if something's happened. And here's a big long list of what possibly might show up when you click that eye, and some explanation as to why. Going through again, this is the same. You're going to have different colors depending on the assessment. You can monitor the student's status as it goes from taking the test. You also have a different look, similar stuff, but you have different look as to what test settings are for the student. Help those people that need larger. Maybe as we're getting older, I guess we need a larger. Now that it's been 3 or 4 years, gets bigger every year. So we have the search feature, new design. Again, this is all stuff that's been there. So I'm just gonna
go team. Anything else that's changed?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Do we have stuff in ORS that's changed? Just the ISRs.
Yeah, we do have. Yeah, they've changed because they took So since they took the test the test management out of ORS, they've put something in. They're very similar, but we could just touch on that if you
great.
want. So we'll just go through this, just explaining the differences.
Yeah, go.
All right, so ORS, very much the same. Here, let's just go. So they've changed right here. You'll notice a difference. So they still have score reports, but they have retrieved student results, which was there. They've just made it a bigger emphasis now that they took the other thing out to Tide. So most of this is still the same. Also, when you're looking at the score reports, this is a new thing. So rather than having to go back all the way through and start over to find the ISRs, now they've added 2 more selections. Again, they like a lot of clicking, but this hopefully will save a little bit. So you can select the course you're looking for, and you can select the grade. So as long as it's in the same school, you can search for grades and courses just by using this pop-up box rather than going all the way back and starting over.
So this is what the field's been asking for, to not have to go back to the home page to click on the different test. So once you're in a school, you can use the widget to change tests rather than starting all the way over. Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so hopefully this is good. Let us know what you think. But again, like I said, it's within school. So if you're looking in different schools, you're going to have to go back. But this hopefully will help. And I think that is it as far as new things. Just talked about this. So this is where you're going to see it. You click on the magnifying glass. It pops up. And it just adds 2 more selections on top that you can select through. You can see it again there. So then you have, I guess this is a really hard ISR to look at, but you'll notice, and maybe I should point it out or pull it big, down here where I'm going through with the cursor, you're going to see it. It's different right here as far as reporting categories.
So, can they see the cursor? Oh yeah, we can see your cursor. Whoops, sorry. So the changes, so we talked about the changes on the interims at the assessment directors meeting, that the class period, you don't get any of this down here, right? The full reporting, you get, you get just the little bar charts with the lines in them and the green arrows that show error. So we should get a new screenshot here that shows the error bands on it.
Yeah, we can pull that out.
With the error. And then on the summative, you get the bar charts like you would on the full reporting interim, but we also give you the scale scores for the reporting categories. So the only place that you get reporting category scale scores anymore is on the summative. Mm-hmm. So you will still get those.
Yeah.
You get the images on the full reporting, and then you don't get anything on the class period.
Right.
And then you get other stuff with the benchmarks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there's a question there.
Is this where we will find the new benchmark and Tesla reports with the same navigation? No. So the benchmark reporting system is separate from ORS. It's a whole different reporting system that'll give you the item views and the student responses. We haven't actually seen it yet in production, so it will be a new adventure as soon as those rolls out. I'm hoping we'll be able to get you some screenshots and training supports, preferably before they go live on September 26th. But Robin will be in town from AIR tomorrow, and we will be asking her to comment on the availability for training materials for those. Remember the difference between the class period and the full reporting as far as assessments. So the full reporting is the full blueprint without the field test items. So it's a little shorter than the summative, but not much. The class period is shorter than that, meant to be given in a class period. The difference, both of them cover the scope of the course for the whole year, just the class period does it in fewer items. So the difference is on the reporting that you get. So neither one of them give you scale scores on reporting categories anymore, but the full reporting will give you that little bar with the black line that will indicate.
Yeah, right here on the.
Yeah, and then there'll be a green error band wrapped around it that shows you that the actual score is somewhere in the green arrow band, but our best guess about the student's ability will be the black line. So you'll see that. Good questions. What else?
So I think that is
That's pretty much it, huh?
Just different ways to get the ISRs.
Yep, same stuff.
So that's it.
Happy day. Okay, not a whole lot of changes from last year, just a few to be called out. So we will clean up this PowerPoint. I've made like a couple pages of notes with action items. We'll get this cleaned up and posted. We're going to use this PowerPoint again tomorrow for the full day training, but we actually go through all the slides, which is why we feed you lunch, because there literally are a lot of them. So if you have staff that would benefit from seeing the 258 slides in person tomorrow, we've tried to break it up over the years and just thought that it would be good to put them together. Scrolling back up to these green slides, Nathan, here's the differences. So see the reporting categories. This is the summative. Hang on. Summative, full reporting. So you get the green bars with the plus, minus, equals, relative to self and relative to proficiency. And then for the class period, you don't. But both of them give you the writing rubrics. So if you give writing either in class period or the full reporting, you get the same rubrics, just not the other reporting categories. Okay, good questions. We hope to have given you 32 minutes back in your day, but we will hang out and answer whatever questions you have for us. A comment about the reporting categories. We can see the overall reporting from the grade level, but we don't see how the state did on that reporting category. Can that be added so we see the state? So Terry, on the interim, no, we don't collect state level data on the interim. That was a decision made overtly not to give state level data because we don't know who's giving it, for what purposes you're giving it, and we don't do any statewide aggregates for the interim.
Right.
So that's on purpose.
For the summative, though, you can see that.
Yeah, for the summative you can. And looking at volume, I mean, we only have 20% of the state even looking at the interims participation-wide. So it's not going to be reflective of a statewide, to have a statewide average, we'd have to have the state take the test, and we don't do that. What else? Good questions. Here we are. I keep looking at his screen because it looks different than the presenter screen, which is kind of fun. WebEx works, huh? Maybe?
Maybe.
It'd be fun to have you all use webcams sometime and have conversations that, yeah, it works. Yay. All right, we'll give you just a couple more minutes to decide what questions you have. Emily, did we catch who's been logged in? It's harder to see on WebEx. That is one difficult thing. I'm not sure how many people have even been with us today, but we'll try and figure that out. When will it be posted? So this webinar will be posted as soon as we can get it prepared into the version we have to post, and then as soon as the web team will get it posted. So right now that's looking like a week, maybe. I don't know. I'm asking if there's some way we can add some resources to that project because we have a bottleneck on our website right now. Emily says 2 to 3 days. All right. I'll trust Emily. It feels longer than that these days. Good. sounds like we are wrapping up. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all the work that you do out there. We recognize that your work is much harder than what we do. You are working with schools and principals and teachers and children, and we appreciate the difference that you all make out there every day. So you know how to contact us. Let us know how we can help you, and we'll see some of your colleagues, maybe some of you tomorrow as we do this. So with that, we will shut down this webinar and wish you all a happy afternoon.
Thanks.
So adios.